Okay, so let's start the remaining things. So today we'll talk about our cluster mode. Okay, Netapp on tap cluster mode. So before starting the cluster mode details, okay, what is cluster actually? Okay, what is cluster? Cluster means nothing but group of. Okay, cluster means nothing but group of. Normally, you will hear this term in normal Netapp cluster, and also in servers also they'll create cluster by grouping some servers. Okay, like that. Okay, so cluster means nothing but it is not only related to storage or not only related to server. Okay, lot of people in lot of technologies will use this term cluster. Cluster means nothing but group of. Will combine controllers and will create a cluster. Okay, so now let's talk about the cluster mode specifications. Generally, in cluster mode, we can have or we can keep up to 24 nodes in a single cluster. That means we can combine 24 controllers and create a cluster. Okay, but when it comes to 7 mode, the maximum is only 2 controllers. You can keep only 2 controllers. But when it comes to cluster mode, it is 24 controllers. That means 24 controllers will act like a single system and they all work together so that there are a lot of benefits because of this. Okay, second point. But out of 24, okay, if you are running on data on tap 8.3 or earlier versions, if you are running on data on tap 8.3 or earlier versions, then 1 to okay 1 to 8 nodes ports unified means SAN and NAS both. Okay, and whatever the remaining nodes, right? 9 to 24 nodes ports NAS only. Okay, so for example, let's assume that I have a cluster with 24 nodes. Okay, I have a cluster with 24 nodes. So in 24 nodes, all 24 nodes will not support both SAN and NAS. Okay, only first 8 nodes will support both SAN and NAS, but from ninth node onwards, they'll support NAS only. That means you'll be not able to, I mean, you can create a volume, you can create a logical partition on top of the ninth node from ninth node as well, but you, you cannot configure a SAN protocol and you cannot assign the storage from those nodes to clients through SAN technology, through SAN protocols. Okay, they from ninth node onwards, you can present the storage on top of them only via NAS protocol. Okay, that is a difference. This is a limitation actually we have, but they have uh, you know the limitation got changed from on tap. Okay, 9.0 onwards. Yes, or 9.3, I guess. I don't remember. Okay, so 1 to 12 nodes. The first 12 nodes will support unified SAN and NAS, and 12 to 24 nodes will support NAS only. Okay, they have changed the limitation from ONTAP 9 onwards. So if you upgrade your cluster nodes to ONTAP 9, then the first 12 nodes will support both SAN and NAS, but from 12 to 24 they'll support NAS only. Okay, what if I have only 4 nodes in my cluster? It is not like you need to have complete 24 nodes. Okay, based on your requirement, you can purchase 2 nodes or 4 nodes or 6 nodes. Okay, like this, 8 nodes. You and always the number of nodes in your cluster must be even, not odd. Okay, you cannot create a cluster like a 3 node cluster. Okay, 3 node cluster or a 5 node cluster or 7 node cluster. That is not possible. It must be even number only. Even number of nodes should be in cluster, either 2 node cluster, 4 node cluster, 6 node cluster, 8 node cluster, 10, 12, 14, like that. Okay, so, and as I told you, 24 nodes, right? 20, we can have up to 24 nodes in a cluster. That means nothing but 12 HA pairs. Okay, 12 HA pairs. Two controllers will together and will act like a HA pair. Okay, this is how it will work. Any questions so far?
No, no, we have.
Okay, so let's proceed. Next, third point is, okay, third point is not all models will support 24 nodes in a cluster. Again, we cannot create a cluster with 24 nodes with all models. All models will not support a 24 node cluster. There are some limitations based on the hardware, controller hardware. Okay, for example, uh, fast 2000, fast 3000, or fast 6000, these nodes are there, right? They'll not support C mode, cluster mode. Okay, you will be not able to install cluster mode on top of them. It only they'll support 7 mode only. Okay, and let's assume that I have a 2200 controllers and I want to create a cluster with these 2200 nodes, 2200 series controllers. Then I can create a maximum of 4 node cluster. If only 4 node cluster, I cannot add more than 4 nodes to a cluster. For example, let's assume that I have a 3200, okay, 3200 nodes, or 3200, or I think 2500 also, 2500. These nodes, by using these nodes, we can create a 8 node cluster. That is the maximum. Okay, I can create a maximum of 8 node cluster with these controller models. And with remaining models like 6200, 2600, 2700 series, 8000, 8200, 8300, 9000. With all these series, even AFF, A400, sorry, not A400, A700, like this. All these models, with all these models, we can create a 24 node cluster. Okay, all these models will support up to a 24 node cluster. That means I can keep these models in my cluster. I mean, 24 nodes. I can create a 24 node cluster with these models. Okay, this is how. So you don't need to remember all these things. We have a portal. Okay, we have a website where we can get all these details. I'll show you after once we complete the theory. I'll show you the portal where you can find all these details. You don't need to by heart this. Okay. If it is a 2200, then it will support only 4 nodes. You don't need to remember all these things. We can find this information. Okay. Next thing, that is the fourth point, and fifth point is we can mix different models in single cluster. Okay. Yeah, there is a possibility, like if you want to mix different models into a single cluster, yeah, you can do that. But again, not all models can mix with other models. Okay. For example, I want to create a 4 node cluster. Okay, let's assume that I want to create a 4 node cluster. Okay, this is my cluster. Let's assume that I'm creating it with 4 nodes. This is my cluster. Let's assume that this is my FAS 8020. Okay, this is a 8000 series model, FAS 8020. FAS 8020 and AFF A300, AFF A300. Yeah, I can mix different models within the cluster. See, these two are belongs to FAS and this is a 8020 series. These two belongs to AFF series, AFF actually, not even FAS. Yeah, but we can mix. But there are some rules we need to check before adding them to a single cluster. We have to check that will they support this kind of configuration or not. Even that also we can check in the portal. Okay, will they support to be part of a single cluster or not? Okay, so yeah, these two are HA pair. These two are HA pair. Okay. So as I mentioned, we can mix different models of controllers in a single cluster, but there is a condition actually. Okay, but what is the condition? I'll tell you. But the controllers within the HA pair must be same. That means here these two are HA pair, right? And these two are HA pair. If I use FAS 8020, I must use the same model, FAS 8020. Even I cannot use FAS 8040 here. No, not possible. Okay, FAS 8040 also not possible. There is another model in the same series, but still no, it should be the same model. Same here. For example, here I'm using FAS AFF A300. Can I use AFF A400, which is the same series storage array? No, that is also not possible. You can use different models within the cluster, but the models within the HA pair must be same. Okay, these are the conditions when you are creating a cluster. You need to consider them. Okay, you need to remember them before creating a cluster. Okay, any questions? Okay, now I'll show you the portal, like where you can find all this information. We have a portal called hwu.netapp.com, hwu.netapp.com, where you can find this information, hardware universe. Okay, so this is the portal. Actually, you need to log into this portal with your support account details. As you don't have support account details, don't worry. When you join any organization, you can create a support account with your organization email ID. Okay, so this is the hardware universe portal. Now, if you want to check something, okay, so click on platforms. Now, I just want to check the details about a fast products. Okay, just click on fast. See here, you have all flash, you have all SAN array, you have fast, like that, HCI, E series, storage grid, lot of things are there, right? I'm selecting fast, fabric attached storage. Now what I'll do, I'll click on select with platform. So it will show me all the models in fast, like from the first generation of fast to what is the latest one. Okay, it will show you everything. It will show me everything. Sorry, actually yesterday I forgot to discuss about a V series product. I'll talk about it a little later. V series and on tap select as well. I forgot that. I'm talking about the products. Okay. Now what I want to do, I just want to know the details about. I want to create a cluster with the FAS 8020. Okay. So select that model FAS 8020. So you need to select the model here and let it load. You need to select the on tap version as well, data on tap version. Which version of data on tap this control is on. Okay. After that, it will give us the information. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select, let's assume that this is in latest version 9.8p7. Okay. Now, if you want to select something like I don't want to, mm, okay. Oh, no. Let's do it. Okay. Now click on show results. If you click on show results, then it will show you the details related to this FAS 8020 series. Okay. So if you come down here, see supported platform mixing. That means here it will show you what are the other models we can mix in a single cluster with FAS 8020. Okay. Just click on supported platform mixing. If you click there, then it will show you. See, you can combine 2700 series with 8020, FAS 500 FA. These are the new models. 8300 also, 8700 also, 9000 also, AFF 250. All these models can be mixed with 8020, FAS 8020. Okay. So what is the maximum nodes we can go up to? With all these models, we can go up to 24 nodes. And if you use a 2500 series, you can go up to eight nodes only. I'll tell you, I'm going to discuss about that as well later. Okay, like that. See, it will give you in detail information about how many nodes we can keep by mixing different nodes and all. Okay, so now I'll tell you. As I told you, we can mix different models, right? For example, let me write it again. My 2200 series will support only 4 nodes. My 3200 or 2500 will support only 8 node clusters, 8 nodes. The remaining all models like 6200, 8000, 8200, 8300, 8700, 2600, 2700, all these remaining models. I'm just taking a fast example only here. Okay, but you can assume it the same for AFF as well. Okay, they'll support 24 nodes. Now, what about the maximum number of nodes supported in a cluster when I'm doing a mixing? For example, I'm mixing, let's assume that I'm mixing my 2200 with 3200 in a single cluster. I'm mixing these two models in a single cluster. Then what is the maximum number of nodes we can keep in a cluster? It will be 4 nodes only, because it will take the least number into consideration. That means my 2200 will support only 4 node configuration, right? And my 3200 will support 8 node configuration. But as 2200 cannot support more than 4 nodes, so that is the maximum number of nodes we can keep in a single cluster when we are mixing 2200 platform with any other model. Not only this, if I'm mixing 2200 with 6200 or 8000, then I can create a cluster up to 4 nodes. Okay, the same thing, if I'm mixing my 3200, okay, with all other models, okay, all other models except 2200, because again, if you use 2200, it will be only 4 node cluster. But except 2200, if you mix it with any other models, it will be 8 node cluster, 8 nodes, right? If you are mixing 3200 with 8200 or 8000 or 6200, as 3200 will support maximum of 8 nodes, it will support a 8 node cluster only, like that. So you need to consider these things as well when you are mixing a platform. If you are mixing a lower end platform with very high end mission, still it will consider the low end platform things only, because they'll not support more than that, right? That's why. So whenever you are mixing different platforms, different models and series, you need to consider these things as well. Okay, any questions, guys?
Yeah,
No.
Naveen.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like in the cluster, as you said before, like we can pair only with the same model, right? And now, like we are mentioning
No.
that we can compatible with other models as well that mentioned in the document.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we can mix the different models, right? That is what I told you. But
Yeah, yeah.
within
Like
the
in the
HA
starting.
pair,
Yeah.
it should be
Okay,
same.
okay, okay,
Okay,
okay,
don't confuse between cluster and HA pair.
okay.
Cluster is a combination of HA pairs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cluster is a
One.
combination of HA pairs, and
Mhm.
for the HA pair, we need to combine only the same model.
We need to have the same model in
Same model.
both the
Yeah.
nodes in HA pair. But
Okay.
in other HA pair, you can use a different model. That is within
Okay.
the cluster, right? In
Okay. In a
cluster, you
cluster,
can use different models. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. For example, what my query is, in a cluster, we are having around like 10 HA pairs, like up to like 20
20
nodes.
nodes. Mhm.
That means for each cluster, maximum like I have to say, in cluster A, we are having of FAS 2200 first, like a one HA pair. And another set is like another one, like the top model is like FAS 6200.
Mhm.
For that, how many nodes we can have in that cluster?
Only 4 nodes.
Oh, up to
Because
4 nodes.
2200,
Okay.
yeah,
It
because
support
2200
only.
supports only 4 nodes, right?
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
now, yeah,
So,
2200. Now what I'm
yeah.
doing is I'm adding, as I told you, 6200. Let's assume that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. Now it has reached the
Mhm.
maximum limit because it has a 2200 series. Now, if I
Yeah.
want to add more nodes to the cluster, it will not allow us.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because 2200 will not support more than a 4 node cluster.
4 nodes. Yeah. I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Zubair, any questions? Yula?
Are good. No.
Okay. Now, and one more thing here, not only that, like you'll be able to see a lot of things here. Whatever the information you want to know about a particular controller, it will show you everything here. And it will show you the maximum and minimum on-tap version as well. Not all controllers can be upgraded to the latest on-tap version. Even based on the hardware, they'll not support maybe latest on-tap versions. Let me show you that as well. How to check the on-tap version. Yeah, let's select the one of the model here. What I'll do, I'll select. I will select simply 3200. Okay, 3220. Let's assume that. See, if you see here, it is not showing on-tap versions up to. It is just displaying up to 9.1 only. Why it is not displaying on-tap versions later than that, like 9.2 or 9.3 or 9.9? Because this particular model will support up to 9.1 only. You cannot upgrade the controller beyond 9.1, on-tap 9.1. Okay, like that. You'll come to know those details also here as well. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, any questions? Someone unmuted. Ajay. Okay. So like that, you can do. For example, let me select 6250 or 6240. Even this one also will support up to 9.1. Let me select a different model, which is a little newer one. Let me select 2500. Okay, 2554. This is a 2500 series. See, it will support up to 9.8. See, it is not displaying 9.9 because 9.9 is not supported with this model due to hardware limitation. Now let me select 2700, 2750. This will support up to 9.9 as well. Okay, like that. So again, not every model will support the latest on tap. So whenever you are performing, whenever you are decided to do a on tap upgrade, first you need to check the compatibility, like hardware compatibility. Will this model support this version or not? You can see it here. Okay. Not only that, it will show you here as well. What is the minimum on tap version? What is the maximum on tap version? Those things also it will show you. Selected it, right? Actually, they are changing this site like anything. They are making it worse. Earlier, it is very good site. Oh, why it is not working? Even you can. I'm not sure. These are not working nowadays. Okay. Normally, this is the way you can check the maximum amount of version and the platform mixing, all those things in the hardware support. Okay. Now, let's talk about the cluster connectivity. Cluster connectivity types. Okay. Generally, in cluster mode, okay, there are two ways to connect the controllers in the cluster. Okay, you can call it as a cluster architecture or something. Okay, so the first one is switched cluster. Second one is switchless cluster. Okay, switched cluster and switchless cluster. We'll talk about these two. When we need to configure a switched cluster and when we need to configure a switchless cluster, or like what are the things we need to consider when we are selecting the options. Okay, we'll talk about those things now. First, let's talk about a switched cluster. So we'll go ahead with the switched cluster option when we are building a cluster with 4 nodes or more than that. Okay, then only we'll proceed with the switched cluster option. Okay, so I'm going to explain you how switched cluster will be, what are the things we are going to do. Yeah, let's assume that I'm creating a cluster here. Okay, I'm creating a cluster with 4 nodes. Okay, this is a node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4. Okay, okay. Node 2, or let me excuse me. Okay, or else let me take fast 2700, 2750, something like that, so that I can explain you clearly. Fast 2750. You must have a same model, right? Let's assume that this is a AFF A400, which is the latest model, one of the latest model in the mid range, A400. Okay, now I want to create a cluster with all these 4 nodes. Normally, you know that, right? For these two are in HA pair, right? So for HA pair, there will be a HA interconnect, and with the help of HA interconnect, these two controllers will be able to communicate with each other. The same thing will happen with these two controllers as well, other HA pair as well. These two are part of HA pair. So with the help of HA interconnect, they'll be able to communicate with each other. HA interconnect. Same thing here, HA interconnect. HA interconnect. Now, but let's assume that my first node want to communicate with the third node. How can it communicate with the third node? Because cluster means every node should be able to communicate with all other nodes. Then only cluster will work properly. Cluster means group of, right? In a group, everyone has to talk to everyone. Then only the communication between the nodes will be efficient. But here, only my node 1 can talk to node 2 and node 2 can talk to node 1. If node 1 wants to talk to node 3 or node 4, that is not possible right now with this configuration. That is the reason what we need to do. We need to install 2 switches here. Okay, this is a one switch. Okay, this is a another switch. Okay, two switches here. Okay, switch one. Okay, and switch two. So these two switches will be having ports. Okay, these are network switches only, but these are little specially designed from Netapp. Okay, we'll bring these switches from Netapp only. Okay, and these are dedicated switches. You cannot use these switches anywhere else. Okay, even though if this has a free ports, we cannot use these. We cannot use the ports on these switches for any other purpose. This has to be dedicated for only this cluster. Okay, these switches has to be. So what we are going to do, we are going to select 4 ports on node switch 1 and 4 ports on switch 2, and we'll connect them with cabling. Okay, we'll connect the 4 ports on switch 1 and 4 ports on switch 2 with cables. And with the help of these 4 connections, okay, my switch 1 will be able to talk to switch 2 and switch 2 will be able to talk to switch 1. So we'll call these connections as, okay, we'll call these connections as ISL. Okay, ISL connections. That means nothing but inter switch links. Okay, inter switch links. So with the help of this inter switch link only, these two switches will be able to talk to each other. Actually, you don't need to do all these configurations. Every organization will have a network team, right? So you can take help of networking team if you are not familiar with these configurations. Or else, if you want to do it on your own, Netapp has a very good documentation where it will show you step by step to configure these switches as well. It's up to you. Okay. So, and we have other ports as well on these switches. So what I'm going to do, lot of ports will be there. Okay, going to draw all these ports. So normally based on the model, okay, based on the model, our controller will be having ports, right? Two 10 GB ports, okay, or more than that in few models. Okay, in fast 2700, it will be having two 10 GB cluster ports. I told you. Normally I have not told you. Sorry. Yeah, every controller will be having two 10 GB ports. Okay, these are the pre-configured ports. Okay, these are pre-configured ports. You cannot use these ports for any other purpose. Okay, same thing here. This also will be having 10 GB ports, but this model will be having 4 10 GB ports. Okay, that is the reason I specifically mentioned AFF A400. Okay. This requires this will be having 4 10 GB ports. So what we need to do now, we need to connect one port to switch 1 from controller 1. Okay, the other port to switch 2, one of the port in switch 2. The same thing here. We need to connect first port to switch 1 and second port to one of the port in switch 2. Here the same thing, but this has 4 ports, right? This model has. So 2 ports to switch 1. See the difference? I'm using different colors for each and every switch, so that's why you will not get confused. Okay, these two connections to switch 2. Okay. And the same thing here as well. First 2 ports to switch 1. Okay. Second 2 ports to switch 2. Okay, this is how we'll connect. These all are cabling connections, cable connections we need to do. Normally, if the switch has only two pre-configured ports, you need to collect one to each. If some when some models having more than that, like 4 ports, then 2 to switch 1, 2 to switch 2. So these all connections, we'll call them as cluster connections. Okay, we'll call these connections as cluster connections. So with these connections and these switches, okay, it will create a, it will form a cluster network here. Okay, we'll call it as a cluster network. Cluster network. So now my node 1 wants to communicate with the node 3, no problem. It can communicate through this cluster network. Okay, now every node in my cluster will be able to communicate with other nodes via this cluster network. Okay, that is the main intention of having a cluster network, switched cluster network. So all the nodes will be connected to these switches, and with the help of these switches and the cluster network, they'll be able to communicate with the other nodes. They'll be able to share the configurations. They'll be able to share the data. Yeah, they'll be able to share everything via this cluster network only. Is it clear? This is what we'll call it as a switched cluster. So once we do the cabling, okay, once we do the cabling, all the ports, these ports are there, right? These pre-configured 10 GB ports, okay, they'll be assigned with a, a IP address in the range of 169.254.x.x. Okay, so all of them are assigned with the IP address within this range. Like we don't need to do that. Okay, automatically when once you connect the controller port to the switches, automatically these controllers will get the IP address. Okay, we don't need to do anything with the IP address. This is for just a cluster internal communication. One node has to identify another node, and one node talk to you another node, right? So they'll use this address as a reference to talk to each other. Okay, so we don't deal with this IP address, or we don't need to do anything other than that. Only thing is what we need to do, we need to just connect them as per the Netapp guidelines to both the switches. Okay, why we are connecting every node to both the switches? Because to maintain the redundancy. For example, due to some hardware issue or something, one switch went down, no problem, still all my nodes connected to the other switch as well, right? So with the help of the other switch, they'll be able to communicate with each other. Okay, like that. That is the reason we are maintaining two switches, and we are connecting every controller to these two switches. Okay, and also these ISL connections also to improve the performance, so that these two switches will be able to talk to each other as well. Okay, any questions, guys? Zubair?
Like, what we call these switch vendor names is like same as SAN one, or these are like different
No, these
vendors?
are yeah, these are the network switches,
Okay.
and mostly we'll use Broadcom switches or Cisco, and Netapp has their own switches as well. Netapp.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
For example, if you purchase a Netapp switches, then it will be CN1610. That is a one switch model. And when it comes to Cisco, there are few models. They have selected models actually. You need to use them only.
Yeah.
And one more
And
thing is,
how we used to communicate. Yeah.
let me finish it. One more thing is, see, for
Yes, sure.
example, I have used only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ports on each switch. Let's assume that I have 100 ports on the switches, but I have used only 6 ports for node connectivity and 4 ports for the other switch connectivity. Total 10 ports only I have used. Remaining 90 ports are free, right? Can I use those 90 ports
Yeah.
for normal network connectivity or any other purpose? No. These are the dedicated switches only for this particular cluster. Even you are not
Okay.
allowed to use these switches for another cluster as well, another Netapp cluster also. Okay. Every cluster must have a dedicated switches. Okay. But if you want to add nodes in future, yeah, you can do that. For example, I have purchased another set of HA pair. Okay. Now I want to add this to this cluster. For example, let's assume that this is my fast 9000. This also will be having 4 cluster ports. I mean, these cluster ports are nothing but don't worry. These are a pre-configured ports, which we have to use for only cluster connectivity to establish the communication between the nodes. Okay. Again, I need to
Okay.
connect 2 to switch 1, 2 to switch 2, like that. You keep on adding like this. Okay. But you cannot use it for any other cluster or any other purpose. This switch has to be dedicated only for this cluster. Okay. I'll show you what are the switch models supported. In hardware
So,
universe, you'll get
and
those details.
depending upon the okay, depending upon the model, we used to have the cluster ports, right?
Exactly. This, for example, fast 2700, 2750 will be having only 2 ports.
Yeah.
But AFF
Okay.
A400 will be having 4 cluster ports. That is how
Yeah,
this is
like
designed.
how many? Yeah. Yeah, we will connect all those cluster ports to both the switches, even though we are having
Exactly.
more. For example, the max is like 4 or more
Yeah,
than that
max
we
is
are having in any other model.
for now, max is only 4 only. Minimum 2, maximum 4.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Only these two.
Okay. For
No
this
3.
also, yeah,
No.
for this also we are having like yeah. For this also we are having like transmitter and receiver, like as you said
Uh,
before,
these are
like
these
for
are
HDX.
these are network ports.
Yeah, network ports. Okay.
Yeah, these are network, not fiber channel.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
Zubair,
got that. Yeah, I got.
Zubair, is it clear? Or do you want me to explain
Um,
one more time?
a little confusion here, it's actually, sir.
Okay. Nothing, sir. Simply, I'm planning to create a 4 node cluster. Okay, that is my intention.
Okay.
Mute yourself. There is a background noise coming. So whenever you have a question, you unmute and ask. Okay, I'll explain you one more time. So I want to create a 4 node cluster. Okay, with 4 nodes. I purchased two 2750s and two AFF A400s. So normally you know that these fast 2750, they are HA pair. So the nodes within the HA pair don't require any additional connections because they'll be able to talk to each other with the help of HA interconnect. The same thing with the AFF A400s as well. They'll be able to talk to each other with the help of HA interconnect. They don't require any additional setup. But in a cluster, all nodes should have a communication with other nodes. For example, my node 1 has to have a communication with the remaining 3 nodes. Same thing with the node 2 as well. Node 2 has to talk to node 1, node 3, and node 4. Node 3 also should have a communication with node 1, node 2, node 4. Node 4 also should have a communication with 1, 2, 3. Okay. But with the current setup, it is not possible because only with HA interconnect, the nodes will be able to talk to their partner only, partner within the HA pair, right? They'll be not able to talk to the other controller. So in order to make it possible, what we have done, we have purchased two network switches from Netapp. Okay, two network switches from Netapp. And these switches are not normal network switches. These are specially designed for the cluster, Netapp cluster, to configure the Netapp cluster, to be part of Netapp cluster. You can say that. Okay. And these all switches will be having, okay, either 10 GB ports or 40 GB ports or 100 GB. Okay, based on the model and based on our requirement, we'll get the port configuration done. Okay, when we are having a discussion, purchase discussion with Netapp. Okay, so they'll only suggest you like, okay, they'll ask us like, what are the models you are going to connect to these switches? We'll tell them, okay, we are connecting fast 2750 and AFF A400. Okay, then they'll tell us, okay, fast 2750 will only support 10 GB configurations, 10 GB speed configurations. And the fast AFF A400 will support all of them. Like they'll support 10 GB configurations, they'll support 40 GB configurations, they'll support even 100 GB configuration as well. Okay, but if we select a 10 GB configuration, then we need to use 4 10 GB ports, 4 into 10 GB. During the discussion itself, they'll configure it according to our discussion. They'll configure the controllers and they'll deliver it to us. For example, we told them that, okay, we don't want to use a 10 GB configuration, we want to proceed with a 40 GB. Then what they'll do, they'll give us two ports only, two cluster ports only, but 240 GB cluster ports, so that we'll connect just like 2750s, we can connect only one port to switch one port to switch two, but these are 40 GB speed ports. I mean, the data transmission through that port is 40 GB per second. Okay. For example, we told them that, okay, we want to use 100 GB connections. That is great, actually. They'll design the ports on the controllers according to our 100 GB. Okay. Like that. Okay. So based on our discussions. But here, whatever the example I took, I want to use only 10 GB. Okay. I mean, just, okay. So, yeah. Okay. You have any question?
Is there nothing? I just got a picture actually, like how things are.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let me finish it anyway. 2 more minutes. Yeah. So I got two 10 GB ports on fast 2750 and 4 ports on AFF A400 for each controller. Now I'm going to connect a node 1 first port to switch 1, second port to switch 2. Same thing. Node 2 first port to switch 1, second port to switch 2. Node 3 first 2 ports to switch 1, second 2 ports to switch 2. Node 4 also first 2 ports to switch 1, second 2 ports to switch 2. Like that. Now all my nodes are connected to both switch 1 as well as switch 2. Okay. And before that, I'll do all the configurations on switch. I'll do, or I'll take help of my network team and do the configurations. Or you can work with Netapp. They'll also configure things for you. But only thing is you need to pay if they have to do it for you. Okay. So already on the switch side, there are 4 dedicated ports actually. Okay. Even Netapp, the switch guide itself will state you which ports you have to use for switch communication, like what ports you need to select for ISL connections on switch 1 and switch 2. So you need to connect the cables between those ports. That's it. The communication between those two switches will be enabled. The remaining ports you can use for controller connectivity. Okay. Yeah. This is how it will work. So after that, what I'll do the connections with from my controller to switch, right? Once you connected the cables, you don't need to do anything. Automatically, the cluster ports on the controllers will be assigned with a IP address. Okay, 169.254. This range only. The first two digits will be 169 and 254 only. These two, whatever the I have placed the X, right? These will change. Okay, these will change, and you don't need to worry about that. These IPs will be assigned automatically, and we don't use those IPs anyway. These are all for internal communication, cluster internal communication. Okay, Beulah, any questions?
No, Naya, it is clear.
Okay. Now let me show you how to find which controller has what kind of ports and all. For example, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the same models. Let me show you fast. Now let me click again, start with platform. Okay, I'm selecting 2750. Okay, 2750. Let me remove the display platform configurations. Now let me select that my controller is delivered to me with fast 9.8 P5 patch 5. Patch means nothing but if there are some issues in a previous patch, they'll release another patch. That's it. Like that. Okay, now click on show results. Okay. Okay, show results. Okay. Okay. Earlier it used to give us the content here like what we want to see, but I don't know why it is not displaying here on the right side. It's not giving us anything and it is asking us to select something. Browser issue. Let me open Edge. Okay, let me connect my charger. Fast. Okay. 2650. Now 9.8p7. Let's assume that. Okay, normally I don't know why it is not displaying properly. Let's select finally. I don't know why. Okay, so now when you click on that, if you come to supported connections, okay, see we have connections like cluster interconnect, storage connect, HA interconnect, like that. So this is the cluster connections we want to. Okay, so if you have a two nodes and if you want to do a switchless cluster, then these are the ports you need to use. I told you, right? Configured, pre-configured ports. Only you need to use only two ports. Okay. For example, as I told you, I want to use a 100 GB or 40 GB connections, switched connections. Then, yeah, 100 GB or 40 GB also. These are the ports. And I want to use 10 GB connections. Then these are the ports you need to use. Okay. So based on the connections you selected, it will give you the ports. If you want to use 10 GB ports, then you need to use four ports, these four ports on each controller to connect to the switches. But if you want to use only 10 GB or 40 GB, then only these two ports you need to use. Okay. And here you can select the switch as well. See, all these are cluster switches which will support. See, Broadcom switches, Broadcom BES. This is the switch model. Okay. I think Netapp switches, they are not manufacturing switches anymore. They are asking us to use either Broadcom or Cisco only. So, but if you use a 10 GB, 10 GB, there are Netapp switch as well. Yeah. So like that. So based on your switch model as well, you need to select the connections. Okay. Not all switches will support the 40 GB or 10 GB connections. Okay. Is it clear? So how we'll get, I mean, where we need to see, is it a 4 connections or 2 connections for the cluster interconnect for that particular model? This is how you need to see. Okay. No problem. Like if you need, I'll help you. like in real time, if you have some query or something which you want to clear, I'll show you. Okay, let me select now. Maybe it will display for joke actually. Okay, just want to show you for 2750 as well. That's why I'm selecting it. Okay, I don't know, but it is not working properly. But yeah, this is the way you can find out the number of cluster connections. So you are clear with switched cluster, right? Zubair, Pula, Krishna.
Sir, I'll just refer again actually, and if at all there is any doubts, I'll definitely.
Sure, sure. Okay, no problem. If you want to have a session, I can take you another session as well. No, not an issue. Okay. Now let's talk about the switchless cluster. Okay, switchless cluster. So when we'll proceed with the switchless cluster, okay, that is when you are configuring your cluster with either one node or two nodes, then only we'll proceed with the switchless cluster. Okay, then only we'll proceed with the switchless cluster. For example, let's assume that if it is a one node, you don't require anything, right? Only one node is there. You don't need to connect to any other nodes, right? So no switches, nothing required. And if it is a two node, you don't need switches, right? What you can do? I have two nodes here. Either it might be, yeah, two 10 GB port or 240 GB or 200 GB will be there. No 4-port configurations. If it is a switchless cluster, it will be anything. It is two connections only, either 10 GB or 40 GB or 100 GB. Okay. So what we are going to do? We are going to connect our first port to the first port on node 2, and the same thing, second port on node 1 to second port on node 2. This is how we are going to connect. So once we do the connections, automatically these 4 ports will get IP address in the range, same range as I told you, 169.254.x range. Okay, and now my controller 1 will be able to communicate with my controller 2 with these cluster connections. You can ask me, okay, anyway, we are having only HA pair, right? Two nodes means it is a HA pair only. Then why we have to do a cluster connections again? See, these HA interconnects are there, right? HA interconnect. These are just 100 Mbps connections only, 100 MB speed connections. These connections are not sufficient to share the configurations between the nodes within the cluster. That is the reason, even though if your cluster is a switchless two node cluster, it is best practice, and you must have a cluster connections. Okay, directly. You don't require switches and all. You can connect the ports directly to each other, and it will establish the cluster network. Okay. This clusterless, switchless cluster is a pretty simple. You don't need to do any additional configurations. You don't need to configure switches and all. Yeah. But again, you need to consider few things before configuring the switched or switchless cluster. For example, right now I've just purchased only two nodes, but in future I'm sure that I'm going to expand my cluster by adding two more nodes or four more nodes. I'm sure about that. That time, instead of having a switchless cluster, purchase the switches that time only and configure it as a switched cluster. Even though if you have only two nodes, do it as a switched cluster. Okay. just purchase switches and connect the nodes to switches only. Okay, so that you don't need to change anything. But if you configure a switchless cluster, okay, if you configure a switchless cluster and in future you are adding two more nodes, you want to add two more nodes, that time anyway you need to purchase switches again. Okay, you need to purchase switches and again you need to change the configurations. What we need to do, we need to remove this connection and we need to connect this cable to switch 1. After that, once we make sure that this connection is working, we need to remove the second connection and we need to connect this to this switch, like that. This to switch 1, this to switch 2, like that. We need to change the connections and we need to convert it from switchless cluster to switched cluster. Then we can add our new nodes to this connections. Okay, this is how it's gonna be. So that whenever you are doing this kind of configuration, just have don't think about only that time, think about the future as well, and based on that do a purchase. Okay, any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, yeah, then that's it for today. Again, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll see. Like Zubair, if you are not clear, just go through the video again and come back to me. Like if you don't understand, just call me, or if you want to have a session, I'll create a separate session for you. Let's have a discussion there. Okay.
Sure, sir, sure.
Okay. And guys, tomorrow is Dashara. Do you want to have take off or do you want to continue?